On November 7th, mere days ago, the news press reported that a 54-year-old Charlotte County man was severely injured after he lost control of his motorcycle and overturned. The victim was not wearing a helmet and could have fared much worse. But who has to pay for irresponsible behavior like this? As an avid motorcycle rider myself, I know that unfortunately accidents like these are too common and sometimes much worse. Lax helmet laws are to blame. According to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, in the United States, only 3 states have no helmet law, 27 have a restricted law, and 20 have full-time helmet laws. In this presentation, I will provide you with sufficient information to make a judgment on the necessity of helmet laws and see the need for regulation as a step in the right direction to solve this problem of motorcycle rider injuries, deaths, rising medical costs, and rising insurance premiums. To begin, let's look at the history of helmet laws and where this problem started. From my surveys, I know that 57% of you are in favor of helmet laws, and 93% of you agree that mandatory helmet laws will increase use and prevent serious injury in motorcycle accidents. Varied motorcycle helmet regulation has created a severe problem in the United States. Although only 3 states have no helmet restrictions, many more do have full-time restrictions or part-time restrictions like Florida's. But where did these regulations come from? How did they get so varied? From the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration's website, I found a thorough history of motorcycle helmet laws by Dr. Linda Cosgrove. This study goes into detail explaining that in 1966, the Highway Safety Act was passed and mandatory helmet laws were required if states wanted federal funding for highways. Also in 1966, the Department of Transportation introduced the Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standard for motorcycle helmets. At this time, 46 states had universal helmet laws. In 1975, Congress withdrew the requirement of states to hold the helmet laws in order to receive funding, and within 3 years, half the states repealed their helmet laws. Further changes to the laws occurred over the years and on a state and federal level. In 1991, the ISTEA was passed to provide incentive grants to states for enacting universal helmet laws. From 1991 to 1995, 26 states enacted those universal laws, and through today, 20 of those remain in effect. A little bit more specifically, in Florida, the law has evolved as well. From my survey, 60% of you were correct in stating that Florida has age-limited restriction on helmet use. In 2000, the Florida statute was updated to say all riders under the age of 21 must wear helmets without exception. That same statute goes on to say that riders over the age of 21 may ride without a helmet if they can prove they have medical coverage. In Florida alone, from 1994 to 2003, motorcycle rider deaths increased from 125 to 358 as a result of these weakened helmet laws. With the problem now apparent, let's look at some of the arguments for the lessening of helmet laws and what's caused these varied helmet laws. Helmet laws are a sensitive issue for many bikers, but if the protective benefits are apparent, why are they so controversial? The following arguments have been made over the years since states have enacted their laws and argued by bikers when states have proposed new laws, causing this variation from state to state. One of the most popular arguments against helmet laws is the argument of impact to no one but the rider themselves. From an article in the Chicago Tribune on November 25th, 2010, Steve Chapman writes, in opposition of the public health crisis argument, skull fractures are not contagious. The public is not at risk if I decide to mount a Harley with nothing but a pinwheel on my head. Another argument against motorcycle helmets is their effectiveness when only your head is protected. In a study from the website bikersrights.org, Dr. Jonathan Goldstein concludes that those who do crash are rarely saved by their helmets. Their head injuries are less severe, but they die anyway. In accidents where the rider died, it made no difference if the rider wore a helmet or not. Perhaps the most compelling and reasonable argument against helmet laws is reflected in my survey. When I asked you about freedom versus privacy, a majority of you said that your freedom is the most important to you. Privacy was a close second, and personal freedoms were third. Most bikers say that their freedom is what they are fighting for. Now that we've heard some reasons against helmet laws, let's look at some of the reasons why helmet laws are beneficial, needed, and the solution to many issues. Although controversial, the effectiveness of helmet laws is readily available, and strict legislation is needed to enforce them. Examples of the effectiveness of helmet laws can readily be found on the NHTSA's website. In a study performed by this federal agency, it was found that in California alone, after this universal law was put into effect, helmet use increased from 50% to 99%. Additionally, the study found a staggering fact that in the 5 years immediately before the universal law, the annual average of motorcyclists killed was 596. In the 5 years following that adoption, the average annual motorcyclists killed dropped to 274, a 54% decrease. To hit a little bit closer to home, the NHTSA measured total motorcycle fatalities in Florida over the last 5 years at 2,564. To accurately contrast this, Virginia, a state with a mandatory helmet law, had only 430 recorded deaths. In a study completed by the Florida Agency for Health Care Administration and the Department of Labor, it was found in the 3 years before the helmet law was changed, Florida measured costs, hospital costs to treat head, brain, and skull injuries at $20,779,939. In the same time period after that helmet law was weakened, the agency found for the same type of injury, hospital costs rose to a staggering $43,744,629. Motorcycle injuries and fatalities are a problem that affects our society in ways that some of you may never see and some of you may never forget. The problem arises when some feel that their own freedoms and opinions are more important than that of the majority. The pain of motorcycle injuries reaches far into each of our lives and into our wallets, with increasing healthcare costs and insurance premium. The solution is plain. It's worked in the past. Enact strict helmet laws, enforce them without prejudice, and educate riders of their responsibility to society as well as their loved ones. I encourage you to share these facts with those of you who know who do ride, and hope that injuries like those of that 54-year-old Charlotte County man can be eliminated. Thank you.